We take a look at how transport in London has developed over the centuries, starting with water and then to rail and road, flying through time on Thursday evening at 7:30. This is ITV1 with a brand new series of Pulling Power.
Welcome to a brand new series of Pulling Power. Coming up, on the trail of Britain's favourite telly sleuth, we uncover his dark motoring secret. Driving a legend, we get an exclusive drive of the sports car that cost $1 million to build but is now going for a song. Plus wacky racing US style. Come for the ride of your life as we join the world's most notorious road trip, the totally insane Gumball Rally.
Amongst the leafy lanes of South Buckinghamshire, just a stone's throw from the motorway, you may be surprised to learn that the chances of meeting an untimely death are way above the national average. But these gruesome deaths aren't road accident statistics, they're murder victims. And if you're one of the many who avidly watch a certain ITV detective drama, you'd have witnessed most of them. Midsummer Murders is in the middle of filming its next series. Chief Inspector Tom Barnaby is one of a trio of famous ITV detectives. Morse has his Jag, Frost his Volvo, and Inspector Barnaby's wheels?
Well, I've got a Rover 75, which is absolutely perfect.
It's very trad, isn't it? Very traditional.
It's retro in the sense that the Midsummer Murders is retro.
Why has it seized people? I mean, it's a huge success.
I think it's largely because the audience always think of themselves being clever than Tom Barnaby. He is the ploddiest plod in the world. Any other television cop would take 5 minutes to clear up these mysteries, but dear old Tom, he takes forever and ever.
No points for spotting that this isn't a 75, it's a Rover P5. The car to be seen in if you were Scotland Yard top brass back in the 70s. And you actually had one of these, didn't you?
I did. My first big car for £120.
Oh.
It had more rust than engine. I used to drive Tom Baker around. He and I sat like two pieces of cured ham playing God in these wonderful machines. Oh, I loved it.
I bet. Back on set, they're preparing for a stunt. Inspector Barnaby's 75 is about to be forced off the road by a villain in a Merc.
Are you driving in those sandals? Are you happy to drive in them?
Yeah.
Yeah, OK, if you're happy. Just take it gently round the grass because it's a bit uneven and it's not got a lot of ground clearance. Don't want to smash it up before the stunt.
Are you involved in the stunts?
Oh, no, I never do any stunts. People always used to ask me, do you do your own stunts? And I used to lie about it and say, well, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Hardly ever.
Colin, is that OK? I just take it?
Yeah,
just round the block. Just want to get the feel.
Adjust it to yourself. A stunt is a combination of the stunt people driving the car and the artist driving the car, and you piece it all together.
I do intense scenes behind desks. I do not involve myself in crashing vehicles or chasing long roads at improbable speed.
519, take one.
Just as they're about to go for a take, a local resident decides to take her dog walkies.
Bessie?
If Bessie slipped off the lead and those cars were going so fast, it'd be a travesty.
Do you know Midsummer Murders?
I do.
You do, yes. It's called Bad Tidings, this one.
OK, well, how appropriate.
Yeah.
OK.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you imagine your character, Tom Barnaby, driving something like this?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This is very grand. Very middle class, very middle England.
Because you know whose car this was originally?
Whose was it originally?
Ah.
Whose was it?
Well, we're going to give you a few clues when we stop.
Was it an
and you've got to
actor?
guess. No, not an actor. I'm not going to say anything else. Don't pump me. Your side?
Could be something.
So, this is the only clue. I think you look most fetching.
Oh, I remember these.
Allow me, sir. Allow me.
No, what about
You
dirty
didn't
old-
ever wear
No,
one
no.
of these.
There we are. It's very smart.
OK, and this?
Oh,
Now, the next clue's inside the car.
he's a politician.
Is a politician.
Yeah.
There's a little tiddly one over there, and there's a very big one here.
Ashtray.
Yeah. Smoker, not necessarily cigarettes.
It's not Harold Wilson.
OK, it's
You're
not a
you're
brand.
talking Wilson?
I am.
Hurrah! My favourite man. Listen, I tell you.
How do you get it as soon as you put the Mac on?
It's the wrong Mac.
Oh,
it's not.
honestly,
This is the wrong Mac. I'm sorry, but it is.
Typical acting. Now, what about the stunt that you've got coming up fairly soon? How's that going to be shot?
Well, with me, it's at a great distance from it. Actually, put your finger on one stunt I can do, because the stunt doesn't involve me as much as the car overtaking.
You see, you are involved, but you're just doing your bit and not...
Minimally.
And action, John, Sarah. Up there.
That wasn't a stunt, that was a bit of luck. They're good cars, though. They take the bangs.
There's nothing wrong with a 75, but, you know, Tom Barnaby needs sexing up a bit, doesn't he?
Sexing up?
That's the phrase of the moment. So what about one of these, then?
Oh,
I could see Tom Barnaby really going for this. Change of image?
Oh, yes. I opened a few buttons. Got on the gold medallion. I'm young again.
Oh, yes.
Well, you know me, I love a bargain, but I also like value for money. And that's why I've come to one of these out-of-town shopping centres. Could have been Blue Water in Kent, Brent Cross up there in North London. We're at Lakeside, and we're looking for the best value for money. And here's a perfect example. 2 bottles of bubbly from the same manufacturer. One is from Champagne country, Reims in France. The other is from Napa Valley, Rutherford, California, believe it or not. This one is about half the price of this one. You pays your money, you takes your choice. But can you get that sort of value for money on 4 wheels? Well, listen up. Here on the roof, we're about to redefine affordable. Well, like I said, you pays your money, you takes your choice. If you paid 20 grand of your money into this 2-litre V6, bottom of the range X-Type Jag, I think it would be money well spent. Go on to the top of the range X-Type, you're paying the best part of 30 grand for a 3-litre V6. Personally though, I'd go for this. 20 grand, looks the part, looks almost identical. What's the point, apart from a little bit of extra power and performance, in going for another 10 grand's worth of motor car instead of opting for this, the 19995 version? And you know, with the 10 grand you're saving, you can buy yourself, well, how about a second very, very decent family car? And not just any small car, you could buy the best small car in the world, which is this, the base Mini 1, just over 10 grand. Bit of a discount, you could probably get it for a bit less. 1.6 litre, 16-valve engine, just like this, its bigger brother. 1.6 litre engine, twice as much horsepower, admittedly, but hang on a minute, an £8,000 price differential. That's an awful lot of money. You can almost buy 2 of these bottom-of-the-range Minis as opposed to 1 at top-of-the-range version. Really, 8 grand's difference between these 2 cars. Can you see 8 grand's worth of difference? Now, if we're talking Toyotas with Land Cruiser badges, well, you can have one of those for about 24 grand, or you can have something substantially larger, more powerful, better equipped, more doors and all the rest of it, but a £22,000 price premium to pay. That's a hell of a wedge to have in your hand. Well, you know, my old English teacher once said to me, you can't say that something is almost identical to something else. Oh, yes, you can, because this is almost identical to this. They're both Audi TT Roadsters. They're both made in Eastern Europe, in Hungary, cheap labour. They're both very nice cars. They both have 1.8 litre engines. All right, the 1.8 in this isn't quite as powerful as the 1.8 in this, but then again, this is 21 and a bit, and this is about 30 grand. Sort of £9,000 difference between this car and this one. At the end of the day, we're talking about a price differential of almost 50%. Well, again, two very similar looking cars. In fact, I prefer the look of this one to this one. But you know, by doing this, stepping out of this into here, I've saved, wait for it, £21,000. You're looking at a 15 grand car here, you're looking at a £36,000 car there. More than twice the price, more than twice the performance as well. But if you want to cater them, I ask you, which of the two would you choose? Now, far be it from me to tell you what you should and shouldn't buy, but I would ask you to think about value for money. This line of cars here, the cheaper versions, collectively come to £90,000. The line of cars opposite collectively come to £160,000. There's a price differential there of around 80%. Think value for money, and on that point, why am I driving this? Well, forget about those 911s and the top-of-the-range Boxster-esque. The ultimate pound-for-pound value-for-money car, in my humble opinion, is the bottom-of-the-range bog-standard Boxster. Cost £32,000. And I know which car I'd rather have.
Coming up, behind the wheel of that £1 million motor. Plus, join us for the trip of a lifetime as we enter our very own car in the infamous Gumball Rally.
In the last series of Pulling Power, we brought you the antics of 6 guys from London who took part in last year's infamous Gumball Rally.
We did it for shits and giggles, really. It was kind of getting a load of mates together, tearing the arse out of America in 3 fantastic cars.
This year, we thought we'd find out what all the fuss is about and enter ourselves. And over the next 6 weeks, this is some of what you've got to look forward to. For those of you who don't know, the Gumball is a 3,000-mile romp across country where anything goes as long as it goes fast. This year's route is a marathon trek across America from San Francisco to Miami. 6 days of the most fun you can have in a car with your clothes on. But frankly, not everybody did. But before we get to all that, let's go back to the beginning. So here we are, San Francisco. On my left-hand side, we've got Alcatraz, and on my right-hand side, the Golden Gate Bridge. We're here for the ultimate road trip and the ultimate road test. And what better car to keep the flag flying than this, the Lotus Elise. With a top speed of around 120 miles an hour, we're hardly going to be the quickest people in the race. But Gumball isn't only about speed, it's also about getting noticed. And there's nothing a Gumballer likes more than drawing a crowd. So after the cars are made race ready, including a few personal touches to ours, it's time to show them off.
This is Ferrari F50, 97 car, good car. If God was alive, he'd probably be driving one.
We have 1973 Corvette with a big block 454, 6-speed, 500 horsepower, 10 miles per gallon.
We have a 99 Ferrari 360 Modena with paddle shift F1 transmission. Top speed should be about 185, 187, and hopefully we'll be able to explore that on this trip.
Some of the cars on display are worth up to 20 times more than our Elise, but we still managed to turn heads. It's not available in the US until next year, but judging by today's reaction, it should do well.
I feel slightly guilty. I mean, I've had people telling me this is the greatest car here. It's like the cheapest one. There's guys up there with like $1 million cars, and people love this. It's like, woo!
To make sure we don't miss any of the action, we put cameras in the cars of some fellow Gumballers. First up, it's 2 Gumball veterans from South London who have swapped last year's hired 4x4 for something with a bit more style.
This is a Bentley Azure Turbo. It's 5 years old. It's got a 5-litre engine. Very comfortable drive. We're going to be cruising across.
We'll also be charting the progress of the boss of Midlands-based Morgan Motor Cars, who's doing the Gumball in an Aero 8.
It gives me, as a Brit, a chance to see the whole of America on the ground, you know, because normally we fly over it, and so you don't really get a picture of what the place is like. And tonight, for instance, we're going to sort of ghost towns in Death Valley, you know. Well, I mean, that's good fun.
OK, that's enough talking about it. Let's get this thing underway.
Everybody's kind of getting too worked up now for this thing. Everybody wants to go. Listen to the engines.
Hey, we're gonna Gumball at last, and I didn't even think you were gonna tell us where we were going. You're going to first checkpoint, Reno.
Yeah, so do we turn right or left or what?
It's up to you, man.
Oh, come on. Wow, we just made a sensational start, and it looks as if this policeman's giving me funny looks. I've only just started.
All the info I need to get to the next checkpoint is supposed to be on the route card provided, but doesn't say anything about getting out of San Francisco.
What's that little piece of card? Let me have a look at it. Oh my God, how can this tell you where to go? Downtown Virginia. I think they've given us the wrong card. Look at this. We're all doing 20 miles an hour because we're all lost.
But just when it looked like we were going to spend the whole night driving round in circles, a friendly Lotus driving local stopped to help us out.
He just said, "You going to Bay Bridge?" And we said, "That's where we're going." So he took us away, and I don't know where all the other gumballers are gone. Bay Bridge. Great.
Next week, I finally make it out of San Francisco and onto the open road. But for how long?
Got any gears, my friend? Looks like we've lost our clutch. This was the place we were told not to break down in, and we have got problems. We have got problems, and it ain't funny.
Now, the launch of a new British sports car is always a very special event. And when that sports car was designed and conceived in the Midlands and bears one of the region's most evocative names, it truly is a reason to celebrate.
Can we make a toast to the new Jensen?
The Jensen. And with the new Jensen SV8, pulling power was there from the start. In 1998, we brought you an exclusive behind-the-scenes documentary on the rebirth of this famous marque. Back then, the future was looking bright. The prototype had been universally well received, £10 million had been raised from investors, and we were looking forward to an early road test. And then we waited. And we waited. Sadly, in July 2002, the money ran out, the staff were laid off, and all that was left of the dream was 10 unfinished cars. But the dream didn't die. 12 months on, those 10 cars are on the road, and I'm going to drive one of them. I've waited 5 years for this. It's not a bad little design, actually. It's quite a compact car. It sits on the road very nicely, goes around the bends when you provoke it pretty well. It doesn't like the bumps very much, various things bottoming out along the way. But on the whole, quite rewarding to drive, and a perfect vehicle, really, for blatting around, enjoying yourself. Fortunately, the 10 half-built cars have now been rescued from the crusher by SV Automotive of Oxfordshire, and they were being sold for £38,000 apiece by Whitney-based classic car dealers as Sellies. I say were because all 10 cars have now been sold. So are they worth 38 grand? Well, if you think about it, it's a steal. I mean, some unlucky investors sunk £10 million into a company that only produced 10 cars. So that's £1 million a car. What is it about? There's something evolving. Well, few cars are worth £1 million, but is this thing worth 38? Yeah, I mean, on the whole, it probably is. It's the kind of car that would appeal to a TVR owner. It's fairly bare-knuckle stuff, a little bit more sophistication than that, possibly, but it's really very enjoyable to drive. engine in this thing is an old favourite. It's the 4.6-litre Mustang V8, kicking out about 325 brake horsepower. It's the one that was in the Quavali sports car I drove a couple of years ago, and it fits into this car equally well. But the one thing you really notice is the heat soak coming up from it. Even with the roof off today, it's like a sauna in here. Well, it looks mega on the road. What does it look like in close-up? Like a lot of small volume British sports cars, some of the shut lines don't bear too close to scrutiny. You can get your fingers into these gaps and you can see the misting up of the lights as well. But I do like the look of the front of the car, reminiscent of the CV8 Jensen, one of the early ones. I like the way that heritage follows through. The lines all the way down the car, very stylish. For a car that was designed 6 or 7 years ago, it really has stood the test of time, this design. And the back, that's the best bit for me. You're showing a really nice clean pair of heels to everybody. The lights, the pipes, it says it all. So, was this a flawed idea from the start? Well, it was difficult enough for Enzo Ferrari to get himself up on his feet and sustain his business over many years. And all these small volume British makers having the same problems. It's a real shame what happened to Jensen. It was a nice initiative, but at the end of the day, the market forces dictated that even if you've got 10 million quid to spend, you aren't necessarily going to have a winner on your hands as a company. In terms of the car, I've actually grown to quite like this car, and I don't really want to give it back to a Sellies, but sadly I have to because the new owner wants it, and who can blame him? He's got something very rare. There are only 10 of these after all. But I think you have to give respect to the people who resurrected Jensen, who wanted to make this car a success. They had very little to work with, and the design they've come up with is really terrific. So hats off to you guys, even though, sadly, it didn't quite work out for you. So is this the end of the Jensen story or just another chapter? Well, this car certainly is a 1 in a million. Will we ever see a sequel? Well, as long as there are romantics in the world, there's always the possibility.
For Britain's city dwellers, the smart car has been a lifesaver. It's small, nippy and cheap to run, but most of all, it's hip. Trouble is, it only has 2 seats, which means families have had to look elsewhere. Until now. Here's a Pulling Power exclusive because these are the first official pictures of the new Smart 4.4. There'll be a choice of 3 petrol engines and 2 diesels, with a manual 5-speed box as standard. Plus, you'll be able to specify a panoramic glass sunroof, which should stop the kids from feeling claustrophobic. 2 extra seats should massively broaden the appeal of this funky little machine. And if Smart can get the price right, then it'll definitely worry the likes of Ford and VW. And of course, Pulling Power will be the first to bring you a full road test.